when we look at the incident recorded in the book of John, chapter 6, it talks about a time when Jesus fed thousands of people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Now, it's interesting when I was reading through the same passage in the NIV version, where this disciple of Jesus, Andrew, comes and describes what this little boy had. And he says in verse 9, "Here is a boy with 5 loaves of small barley bread and 2 small fish." Listen to this. What really caught my attention was he said, this boy has something, but he has just 5 loaves of small bread, small fish. Emphasis is on the word small. Sometimes people may look at what you have and say, what you have is small. What you have is nothing great. Now, when I want to give you an example today, there is one big loaf of bread and there's one small loaf of bread. Now, if I had the big loaf of bread, I will come and thump and say, I have a big loaf of bread, guys. I have more than enough for you and everybody. But here is this man who came to Jesus and said, but he has just 5 loaves of small bread. He didn't even say he just has bread. He was emphasizing and saying, what he has is just small. This is just a small boy, a young boy, who's bringing just some small bread and small fish. Nothing great can come out of it. Can I tell you something? Some of you have written off what God has given you because you think that what you have is small, what you have is insignificant. What you have may be small, but who you have is big. What you have may look insignificant, but God can bring great significance through the little that you have. The little that you have brings something of great significance when you give it into the hands of God. Today, my challenge to every one of you is this, saying, God, I have only this little. I have something that may seem insignificant. I have something that looks like nothing great can come out of it. But I want you to get this into your spirit, that God is able to expand. God is able to magnify, amplify what you have so that you can be a greater blessing. When I started the ministry, when I started out with sending text messages and podcasts and all the different things, people laugh, people mock. They said, what you have is small. Nothing great can come out of it, John. People wrote me off. People called it ramblings. There were moments when not a single person would listen. There were moments I organized meetings and literally nobody showed up. As long as I keep dwelling on those things, I'm not going to see the fullness of what God has for me. But I have the courage to say, yes, what I have may be small, but I know that my God is on the throne, that who I have on my side, backing me up, the big God, the Almighty God, He is big. When you have the big God backing you up, it doesn't matter how small what you have may seem like in the natural. Because you have to remember, with what you have, you can accomplish very little. But when you give it into the hands of God, He can bring it to be a great blessing to so many multitudes. The same podcast people laughed at, people mocked at, people had ridiculed, and people had said so many derogatory comments. Can I tell you, that is the same podcast that God helped to start trending across the world, start ranking at number 1 and number 2 in so many countries around the world. The same podcast has been trending in so many places with so many people that we had renowned guests on the podcast. God was able to take what people laughed and people said as small, as insignificant, to bring great significance through that. That's what I want you to understand. If you have the courage to step out of the boat, if you have the courage to say, enough is enough, I'm not going to let those negative naysayers to dictate the rest of my life. I'm going to be bold and say, I'm confident with what I have. I may not have big loaves of bread, but I have the small loaves, but I have a big God. And that is what is going to make a big difference wherever I go in my life as well.